What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the By the Hood podcast or webcast because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host, as always. My name is Jimmy. And as we start off every one of our shows, that's with gratitude. Just want to say thank you to everyone who supports anything we do. That's whether you're copping our merch, whether you're sharing a video, especially our students at By the Hood University, because the university is growing. We have a lot of amazing students. And shout out to all the students that are making money and posting those screenshots in our private group because it's all inspiring and we help each other. And everyone who supports the channel, salute to all you guys. Make sure that you subscribe and hit like on this video as well because we're trying to build out our YouTube content and build our YouTube channel up. I'm joined by my partner in crime as always, Corey. Corey, what's up, bro?
Man, living a dream. Every day above ground is a good day.
Yeah, I heard that. And for the folks maybe listening for the first time, our platform is designed to highlight brothers and sisters who look like us, who are doing amazing work in the community, building businesses, helping other folks. And we have a very, very special guest on this episode. We have our sister from the Black Wealth Project. She has built up an amazing business with the Ivy Investor. She's also an attorney, and she will cuss you out as we find out every Sunday. So without further ado, Courtney, how are you?
Wait, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that.
Listen, you tell it like it is, though. You tell it like it is. Listen, and we love you for it. But how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm great.
We're doing amazing. We finally tracked you down and got you on the show. And our show is about your story. It's not really about us. It's about highlighting your story. So before we get into it, about what you got going on now, let us know about your background. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? All the good information about Courtney. Who is Courtney?
So who is Courtney? I mean, I think that's a loaded question.
I know that was real loaded. How about this though? Let's start with this though. Where are you originally born and where'd you go to school?
So I was actually born in Central Jersey. My dad was an executive for McDonald's in the early 80s. So my mom was actually licensed in Pennsylvania as a nurse. So they kind of had to find a joint place in the middle, which was Central Jersey between New York and Philly.
Gotcha.
So I was born there, and my mom was like, "We're not doing this anymore." And my dad was like, "I'm tired of being in this corporate America thing." So they moved back to Philly. So I was born in Central Jersey and raised in Philadelphia, raised in the Mount Airy section of the city.
Okay, what schools did you go to up here in Philly?
So I went to Catholic school, Holy Cross, which is actually in Mount Airy. I went to I went to Sicilian Academy, which is actually no longer in existence. It was a all-girls school that was in West Mount Airy, but it closed, I want to say in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. I went to Holy Cross from there. And then from there, I went to the Philadelphia High School for Girls.
Oh, Girls High. So me and Corey right down the street, we Central guys. So,
Central lights in the house.
Yeah, we know about Girls High though. Shout out to y'all.
Yeah. So wait. So I have a question for you guys. Then, were you guys playing dominoes?
Yes.
At lunchtime.
I was the originator of the dominoes at lunchtime.
Actually, I was about to say Corey ran a dominoes game at Central.
That was my job. I literally sat in the lunchroom all day and played dominoes.
Wait, did you go to class?
Never, not once.
Listen.
Okay.
Me and Corey played on the ball team together, and that was the only time I saw him outside of the lunchroom. I'm like, what classes does he have? But his story is matter of fact, Corey, one day we gotta do an interview with you, man. I gotta interview you to tell your story because Corey never went to school, but it was weird though. So that's how me and Corey clicked because Corey was like one of the smartest guys, but he never went to class, and I never understood it. So he was like an enigma himself. But anyway, getting back to Girls High. So Girls High, for those who may not be from the Philadelphia area, that is one of the best schools in the city. So, obviously you're very intelligent as a young lady. So where'd you go to college at after that? Because when you said you went to Girls High, I know you went to college. It's not a matter of did you go to college? Where'd you go to college?
So I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and actually funny that you said that. So when I think I was in the 10th grade or so, and I feel looking back now, I actually had more sense than I thought I did. I told my parents, I was like, why do I need to go to college? And they were like, what? And I was like, why do I need to go to college? They were trying to get me to basically straighten up and fly right, because I am smart, but I am not a good student. I will not tell you those stories or those lies. I am not a good student. It just is what it is. But you have to know yourself. So I share that with you guys to say, these are the things that I'm working on. And I was just very tired of school. I was very tired of just people, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And I was like, I'm just going to quit and go, to a regular school, and I'll get my GED or whatever, and I'll figure out a way to make money. And then my parents were just like, absolutely not. Are you crazy? On my dad's side, we're like third generation college. My mom went to college, and my parents were just like, this is not, no child of mine, but now I'm like, well, maybe I was on to something.
That's interesting to hear you say that, because you have more degrees than a thermometer. And, and I know you do all the research. To hear you say that I wasn't a good student. Like, how does one who's not a good student even like get into Girls High? Like, to say I'm not a good student, that's very interesting.
So I mean, so here's the thing. I mean, like, let's be a very like transparent. Like, I don't have to open a book to actually do okay. So that's the thing. Like, I could like easily do like an A-, which is going to class and kind of paying attention, but not really. But that was me. And one of the things I kind of chuckled when Corey was like, well, I didn't go to class. I'm like, well, I appreciate that, because I definitely cut a lot. I would listen, but I actually did not do well in Spanish at all. Like, I think I got my first D in Spanish because I refused to memorize what she wanted me to memorize. I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's not learning a language. That's memorization. I think that's silly. That's not comprehension. So at 15, I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. But yes, I do have a whole bunch of degrees. I went to University of Pittsburgh, and I have a philosophy degree. I have bachelor's in philosophy. Then I went to, I worked as a stockbroker for 6 years. So I worked at American Express, which is now Ameriprise. Then I went into banking. So I worked at PNC Bank. And then from there, I got recruited to work at Merrill Lynch. So I started off in 401k service. So I know all the things about 401ks and all that other stuff. And then I got promoted to assistant vice president, where I worked in global wealth management. And I worked as a financial advisor in terms of allocations and portfolios. I did what's called separately managed accounts. That was primarily my work, which is basically mutual funds on steroids. So instead of owning a mutual fund directly, like, because you only own shares of a mutual fund, you own the individual shares of the stock of the portfolio. So it's a lot more tax efficient. It's basically anybody who has a lot of money should never be in a mutual fund because of the embedded gain. So you're able to control your tax impact to your portfolio and your life. So. And then, right, the market crashed.
And I know you hate mutual funds, because we talked about this the other day, and I have like a huge amount of my net worth in a mutual fund. But the reason why is because as I was building it up over the last several decades, it prevented me from just selling it off. Like, because again, you talk about knowing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about ETFs, in my experience, like, and even with myself, I find myself trying to, trade as opposed to just buying and accumulating. So, but it's interesting. You talk about not being a good student, but also you mentioned about being self-aware. And I think that's so important. I think that's one of the most important things you said about being self-aware. My question to you, though, based upon what you just said, is how do you go from philosophy to like big banking? Like, what was it that led you like from one, were you always thinking about banking even with philosophy, or what were you trying to do with the philosophy degree? Let's put it that way.
What was I trying to do? I was trying to go to law school. So that's really all it was. I was going to law school. Pitt has like the number 1 or number 2 philosophy program at the time. And probably still is the same way. Like who outranks people in philosophy? No one's like rushing to the top of philosophy. So whatever. That being said, I was just going to go to law school. I had kind of a couple of business courses that I took in college. I definitely took macro econ. I took micro econ. I took financial accounting. I took business statistics, took business calculus, because I was going to do like a dual degree or dual major in business. And then I was just like, meh, I'm good. I don't really want to work hard. See, I told you I was a bad student. And I just kind of gave it up. But I had all that business background, and I was at Inroads, I guess an Inroads scholar. Is that what we were called?
Yeah, that's what it's called.
So I was in Inroads, so I had that that business experience. So it wasn't just kind of like just shooting in the dark, but my honest to goodness, I was just going to go straight to law school. But after I got tuckered out in school, I was like, this is too much. I decided to take some time off. My parents were like, that's great. You graduated. My dad got me a car. He's like, all right, live your best life. You need to get a job. So I put my little resume on Monster, and the only job that hit me up was American Express Financial Advisors. They were like, do you want to be a financial advisor? And I'm like, oh, let me look at all my job offers. Oh, I don't have any? Well, sure. What do I got to do?
Okay, so that answers the question. But it is interesting you said that too about the philosophy degree. I remember when I went to law school and I was talking to one of the recruiters at, for a law program, and he said that one of the mistakes people make are majoring in pre-law when they're undergrad. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that they like to have a mix of students with all different types of majors when they bring you into a law school. So a lot of people who major in pre-law don't even get accepted in law schools because they don't want a bunch of pre-law students. They want to have philosophy. They want to have business. They want to have like education, people from all different kind of backgrounds. So anybody watching, think about law school, think about that.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I
absolutely.
actually paid my way through law school as the minority recruiter. So that was the conversation that I had all of the time. My last 2 years of law school were paid for, and I also got a stipend. So no, I wasn't balling. I mean, it was, I was just living the life. But that being said, that was a big deal.
Yeah. Interesting. So did you fall in love with like finance immediately once you start working there, or, because you said you had some business background, but that's basically the job that was offered to you. Like, did you fall in love with it immediately? Like, how did you get to this point where like, and I know that you love what you do because I read your articles. Like you're one of the only folks within the space that still like, does long form writing and you do research or whatever. So, I like to share your articles because you save me time in talking to people. So did you fall in love with finance right away, or is it something that you grew to love?
So definitely, I think I fell in love with finance like immediately, or at least I've always been that kid that was like, I don't know if you ever went to the store and, back in the day we used cash. So, I would put my hand out like, hey, when we would kind of check out the supermarket and they would try to give me the change. I'm like, oh, I don't want the change. Give me the dollars. And my mom's looking at me like, what job do you have? So there was always some kind of idea that I had going on with money, if that makes sense. So it was kind of like I had a concept. What I was going to do with it, I don't know. But I was like, And so I think that was the thing. And I was actually had like a little jewelry business when I was like 12 or 11. And so it was kind of like I had like a little bug. And my dad was an entrepreneur too. So it was kind of like I always had this thing going on in the background, if that makes sense. But I never kind of really acted on it. And then when I got into finance, I was like, oh, I feel like I'm at home,
Got you. That's interesting. So so now you do all this. How do you come up with the idea for the Ivy Investor? Where did that inspiration come from?
Ooh, my friends, actually. My friends are a lot of my inspiration, which is pretty, I guess it's pretty dope.
It is.
My friends really kind of, what was going on is that I went to law school. So the market crashed. The market crashed in 2008. Bank of America purchased Merrill Lynch. Let me tell you how we didn't know. I did not know. I found out on the news. I was driving to work from a client.
This is as you're an employee of Merrill Lynch, you didn't know.
No. I'm driving in and I'm like, I hear it on the news. They're like, yeah, Bank of America purchased Merrill Lynch today. I was like, Merrill Lynch who? My job? So I'm looking at, and mind you, I had a BlackBerry. I'm looking at my BlackBerry, like maybe, I think was it John Thane at the time? I think it was John Thane because it was a black guy before him, and I can't remember his name right now. But so I was Stan. It was Stan O'Neill before him. So I'm looking at the email. I'm like, wait a second. So all day I'm checking my email, and I'm like, somebody going to tell us something? And maybe like 3 days later, they're like, oh yeah, we got bought.
Huh? Wow.
But at the time there was so much chaos. First of all, like I said, I did separately managed accounts, and one of the separately managed account strategies was a bond strategy run by who, y'all? Lehman.
Lehman Brothers.
So I'm sitting here, and they were like, Lehman fell. I was like, who fell? And I'm hot. I'm like, I'm in my mid to late 20s. I'm like, and I was like, are we activating SIPC? Is SIPC coming on? I was like, oh my God. Oh my gosh. I mean, so this was like, so I give you that background, like, and then there was like a California bank every other day falling down. And then you're just like, so I share that with you guys to say, yeah, you know, that was crazy, but it's no more crazier than the rest of the nonsense going on during that time.
That's true. That is true, because that was interesting times to live in. Like, I remember, like, literally on a daily basis, someone who was at the time who was invested in the market and following the market. You just see these big institutions. I remember what the biggest one to me at the time, like, I couldn't believe Countrywide, because Countrywide was such a huge organization, and and the way they went down, I was sitting there watching it from day to day, because I'm like, I'm gonna buy a bunch of this stock. And I remember it got down to like 44 cents, and I was like, hold up, this thing might go to zero. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you see these things, you see these companies now. Speaking of like inflated valuations, what we have going on now with COVID, and it's like hard to imagine some of these big institutions literally going away. And that's what was happening at that time. Big businesses that you thought would never go away were just either going away or getting acquired. When they went down to being close to next to nothing, getting acquired, right? So living through 2008 is very interesting. So you see the bulls and the bears in terms of the market, but when you go through what happened, when you go through what happened, like in with the .com bubble, and you see what happened there, which was absolutely insane, and then you see what happened in 2008, is like, you know, that is history. And like now we see things happening, but you know what I mean, Cor? So
yeah. So I did, like, in 2008, I was actually in college in 2008. Like, I had just went back to school. So to finish up my my undergrad, because, you know, I took the long way to undergrad. I went to undergrad, then I went to the Army, then I, you know, did some
undergrad.
Yeah, I did a whole bunch of stuff in between the Army and undergrad too. Like, I went to nursing school. I actually have a CNA and all this other kind of stuff. Like, I went to all these trade schools.
Oh, you and your Forrest Gump bag.
I was definitely in my Forrest Gump bag. And then I said, all right, man, let me go ahead and get this 4-year degree. And then I was actually teaching before I was doing that. Because I had so much other experience, I was actually teaching before I actually went and got my degree for teaching.
But I just wanted to give a little bit of background about 2008, because what you said is true about just how actually crazy it was during 2008, and how that sounds crazy now, but those are crazy times we were living in. So you didn't find out from the company right away. You found out on the news. But yeah, getting back to the Ivy Investor piece though, like, so how do we get to the Ivy Investor? You said it was your friends after your experience with Merrill Lynch.
So I went to law school, and then I started working at a big firm, and that's like everybody's dream. Not everybody's dream, but it's a lot of people's dreams. Like, I'm an attorney, I'm gonna work at this big firm, I'm gonna make this big firm money, and they don't tell you you're gonna get a big firm headache, and you're gonna hate it. And I hated it. Hi. So that being said, like, I love writing. So as you know, you kind of talked about that earlier. And then, so I started having a lot of my friends asking me questions, because they were now in transitions in their lives. They were starting to get married. They were having kids. They were doing all of those things. So they just were like, Court, like, can you tell me more about this? Or I'm about to leave my job and I'm going to cash out my 401k. Pause. Why? Well, because what else am I going to do with it? Roll it over. What's a rollover? And so it was like, I was like, okay, what's a rollover? Well, and then I had to go through that whole conversation. So I can't even have a conversation about what they should do, how they should do it, when I realized people just didn't have a basic knowledge of some of the stuff that they were involving themselves in on a regular basis. I was like, oh, we have a real problem. Like, there's a gap, because everything that was normal to me and regular and functional, and how I ran through 401ks and all these other retirement accounts, that wasn't common knowledge, especially amongst people who looked like me. And I was like, okay, so Houston, we have a problem. And what I can't be doing with y'all is sitting on the phone, because if you know anything about, and I'll just share this with people, when you work for a big law firm, you actually bill. So you have to account for all of your time in basically 6-minute increments during the day. So I can't be on the phone with you talking about 401ks for an hour. So I said, listen, I'm going to write this blog. I'm going to send it to you. That's going to give you your basics. Then we can have a real conversation about your options after you understand the basics. So I started doing the blog that way. And people were like, yo, I really love your stuff. And they were starting to share it with other people. And I was like, oh, okay. And this is 2014. I'm like, whatever. And so I started just writing. I did some more writing. I had like an Instagram, nothing really crazy. And then at some point people ask me like, when are you going to do a class? Now, if you are a former licensed person, you're afraid of everything.
Man, listen.
And I was like, class for what? Who's doing that? That sounds like investment advice. I'm not giving that. Go away. Like, so again, because you like, listen, compliance is like Big Brother. And FINRA. So I was licensed in 2003 under the National Association of Securities Dealers. So that's honestly what NASDAQ is named after. So people are like, what's NASDAQ stand for? They don't think it even stands for something. It's a National Association of Securities Dealers Automated Quotation System. That's what NASDAQ stands for. And it was the first computerized trading system ever. And it kind of started with the National Association of Securities Dealers. Okay, cool. And then in 2006, they moved over to FINRA. I don't even know what it stands for. I forgot. I don't care. But either way, NASD or FINRA, they're going to come for all your stuff if you start acting up. So
listen, they come for your stuff sometimes when you don't act up. Like one of the reasons I let my securities license go, and I had multiple securities licenses, was because, it got to the point where, and this was like after Enron, when they was like, listen, in the firm I was with, like, we got to turn in our bank accounts every month just to like let them know that we're not commingling funds and all these stuff. I'm like, listen, and I was still trying to do real estate deals, but it kind of like you're right. You get shell shocked into sharing information when you're licensed because there's so many things you can't say this, can't say that, will get yourself in trouble. So
John?
I'm here. Okay, there's Jimmy.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. At the time that you were creating this blog, did you still have a license at that time? Were you still licensed at that time?
So I let my licenses. So I actually hung my license with Primerica from 2000. So just as a fun fact for everybody out there, you have to have your license associated with a firm. And if it's not, you have 2 years to kind of reassociate with a firm or you lose them. So I basically left Merrill in 2009. So I had until 2011 to get it together. In 2011, I hung my licenses with Primerica. So I had basically until 2013 to decide what I was going to do. In 2013, I was like, you know what? I'm Gucci. Y'all be blessed.
Hold up. You had your license with buy term and invest the difference?
Yeah, I wasn't doing none of that. I was just like, I need y'all to hold my licenses.
No, I'm just asking because I know that you're like that's one of your pet peeves. You hate when people say that. So I'm like, hold up, that's their thing.
That is their thing. And I had so many conversations with them. I was like, I think this is stupid. I actually think it's financial malpractice, but I'm gonna mind my business. And at least specifically in Pennsylvania, because we have this inheritance tax, which happens at death. So there's an ongoing obligation, whether you're 50 or 105. And I think, when you're doing this buy term invest the difference, I think there's some philosophical issues with it. Just in general, like you're making some really big assumptions that you're going to be able to self-insure. You may or may not be able to self-insure based on everything that may happen between the end of the term and when you actually die. I mean, we all know that. I mean, if you've seen some of these COVID bills that people are getting, they could just run through their savings like that.
Yeah.
So,
and to me, the biggest problem with that is similar to what I said about the ETF. Like, the actual the part about the discipline, right? Making sure they invest the difference. A lot of people will buy term and won't invest the difference. You know what I mean? Yeah. So getting back to your journey now. So now you're writing these articles and you're sending them out to your friends, and you're building up a little following. You're the Ivy investor. So explain the Ivy part.
So so I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Okay.
So, but there's more to the Ivy just to say, oh, it's cute and it's pretty and all those other things. Ivy And I actually am dealing with a rehab right now. Ivy is one of the strongest plants. It can grow through anything and it will eat right through your brick. And one of the things that you need to be as an investor is you need to be resilient. You have to be strong. You have to you have to withstand during tough times because that's how the market goes up and down. So there was a relation. It wasn't just, hey, the Ivy investor because I'm an AKA. It was just like, no, I really mess with the Ivy plant. The Ivy plant is an amazing plant based on all the things that I shared. And that's kind of what really pushed me to say, yeah, the Ivy investor.
Oh, that's dope. It's a little branding going on there. Yeah, it's science behind it, right?
Yeah, right.
So
Scientific.
when did you get to the point where you started having like, classes or webinars and things like that, as you grew this blog out?
So about 2017, I want to say the end of 2017, shout out to HBCU Wall Street. They really kind of like pushed me to do classes because they had a group me like back in the early days of HBCU Wall Street. They had a group me and people would be
I was in there.
Were you?
Yes, I was. I was definitely in there. Interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, though.
I was definitely in there, and people would ask a lot of financial questions, and I was just like, "Oh, here's the answer," and I would send it out, and they're like, "Yo, that's a really crazy answer," and I'm like, "Okay, it's just what I do." So they were kind of like, "Well, why don't you do a class?" And I was like, "Why? Why would I do a class?" And they were like, "You should probably do a class." And I was like, "Okay, why would I do that?" So it was kind of that. It was that idea. So there were a couple of things that I knew about myself. I knew that I had a presence. I would shout out to the Philadelphia School District for the oratorical contest that I won, because I was getting it popping. But I share that.
It's like, weren't you in that too, Court?
Yeah, I won the Black History oratorical contest twice.
When? I think you're older than me though.
I'm 43, so I might be a few years in front of you. But I wanted it in elementary school.
She's saying she would have cooked you though. That's what she's saying.
We can have it out with the words. My pen get busy. my pen get busy.
No, but go ahead though. So you said you had that. You had that about you, and what else?
So I had the present. So it was just, and then shout out to Sonia, the student loan doctor. People were just kind of saying, "Hey, you should do these classes," and I was like, "No." But then I don't even know what caused me to do classes. Offhand, I mean, it was a lot of nudging, but I'm not sure what the kind of like final push was. So I started doing classes. Predominantly, I did a investing in cannabis class because people started asking me about it. They're like, "Hey, what do you think about cannabis investing?" Or they were like, "Hey, what do you think about cannabis?" And I was like, "You smoke it." And they were like, "Right. But what do you think about it as investing?" Now, this is 2017. This is before well before Canada decided to legalize. They were talking about legalization or adult use legalization because they were already legal medicinally in 2001. So they were like, all right, so there was a rumble, but it wasn't quite going over the top. So it was merely just conjecture. So people were like, oh, what should I do? Blah, blah, blah. What do you think? So that's kind of what started me on that conversation, like teaching about cannabis and teaching early stages of Bitcoin, like early stages of Bitcoin, and just kind of understanding the whole basics of blockchain, which I thought and still think super dope. So I've been teaching classes since then. I'm now considered a cannabis investing expert. I have, I don't know, like 7 classes, something like that. That I teach, and I mostly teach them live, but they're always they're always recorded and they sit up on my Teachable site. And then I just started, and then I also made a conscious decision on Instagram that I was going to make Instagram my thing. So I was going to call it something else. I was like, that's not appropriate. So I was going to make Instagram my platform. And then I decided kind of how I was going to cultivate my story there in terms of education. Because again, I felt like people were not really, to your point about long form blogs, people weren't really into those anymore. They're just like, I want to see a picture. Infographics were like really doing something. I'm not a good infographics person. Like I can give you stick figures, but that's about it. So, but I said, well, how can I tell a story about the brand of the Ivy Investor in a way that makes sense, the way that educates, and the way that empowers? So I set up my Instagram that way, and then like kind of life started to take off. So gotcha. I put myself in position, life started to take off, and then I started getting featured in like AARP. I've gotten featured in Forbes. It was just kind of like just all of that.
That's dope. That's dope because like your page is amazing because it's like you're always educating, right? You know, so like our page, I like putting up crazy finance memes, but you like educating. So, you know, so your page is pretty dope. Anybody goes to her page, and we will put a link to her page within the description so you can check it out if you haven't seen it. But it's always about educating the folks, right? And that's interesting what you said, that a lot of people that look like you didn't have the knowledge, because I think at times we forget. When you study this stuff, you have a certain understanding of it, but most folks don't. Give you an example. We had a student that came through our course, and so Corey and I try to walk through with him, give him one-on-one consultations as part of the courses. And I was having this conversation, and she was like, these acronyms, like, I don't know what this means or that means, because you forget.
Oh,
You know what I mean? And you forget that people's baseline is different. So her question was like, listen, I understand what you're saying, but what is a brokerage account? Like, why can't I just go to my bank and just buy stock? What's a brokerage account? And I'm like, oh, we got to go all the way back there. But you forget at times, like, and people specialize in other things. And I've even seen people who are like, doctors, right? So they're people you would think that have a certain level of intelligence, but they're good at what they do as being a doctor. They have no idea when it comes to personal finance. And I'm pretty sure you see that too in helping folks, that some people can be educated in one space and just have no idea whatsoever. Right?
Absolute mess in the financial space.
Facts. And the thing is that they have capacity to do it. But here's the problem, is that no one has these conversations with us. And I think we're kind of sold a bill of goods when they're saying, I mean, I was taught pretty much from my parents, like, hey, go to school, do well, get a good job, retire, buy a house, retire, whatever. That was the story. That's what I was supposed to do. And so when we got out there, I was like, well, wait a second. None of this makes any sense. And then you realize, like, I'm missing a whole book of knowledge back here. And I mean, even still, like, I had financial knowledge. Like, I knew stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, options from the Series 7, which is the stockbroker's license. But I have no idea. I mean, I did not know my laziness and ridiculousness as a person with credit, or being irresponsible with other people's money, was going to cause me all kinds of problems. So even still, like, to Corey's point about, you can be really educated in one thing and just be a mess somewhere else. Like, that's my life. That was my life. I mean, and I'll be very transparent, because I think it's important for us to have these conversations. I almost got denied admission to the Pennsylvania bar because of my credit.
And just not knowing. Yeah.
Oh no, I knew.
You was running that tab up. That's what it was.
I was raggedy.
Ooh, you knew, and you still was funky, huh?
But I think that's an interesting point, though, because most people think about it like, okay, my credit is messed up, I can't go buy a car I want or a house, but they don't think about the fact that you almost got denied entry to the bar.
And that's why I share it, because I'm like, again, and it was like dumb stuff. Like I said, I got paid in law school, so it wasn't like I'm broke law school. No, I'm just irresponsible, y'all. And I share that with you just to say, and it wasn't even like a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I had like speeding tickets from DC that it went to collections, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. I had you'll appreciate this. I had a Bally's account from back in the day on there. And I had to argue that. I actually had to present my case that I wasn't paying it. And the reason being is that they actually did the okie doke and I canceled properly. I canceled the whole thing properly. And they popped out of nowhere to say that I owed the debt. No, I don't. And then turns out, to my benefit, the New York Attorney General, which is basically the attorney for the people, had to sue Bally's for the same issue that I was having. And it was about to fall off my credit report anyway. So I was like, all right, well, bar. I was like, how long are my results good for? Because I'll just come back when it falls off. And the same thing with, I took a class, a couple of classes as an MBA, and I didn't finish them. I had to withdraw because I got a job in Philly and I was living in Pittsburgh, and the school just messed up my financial aid, sent like a $6,000 bill to collections. I was like, I'm not paying that. And I told them to their faces, I'm not paying that because you made a clerical mistake and you guys are not trying to clear it up. And it was just like a whole problem. And I was like, fine, I'm not paying it. But I had explained that to the bar. Now, thankfully, when I can be ratchet, but I had a whole bunch of documentation, certified letters from both issues, from me communicating all the way back to 2007. Now this is like 2013 of having this conversation with these collection agencies. So they were like, I was like, listen, I'll pay all these other things, but these two things I'm not paying.
Yeah.
And they were like,
documentation beats conversation.
facts. And they were like, oh, okay, that's fine. We'll let you in. But again, I was really shaking in my boots. Like really, like honest to goodness, I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And but I had to me personally, I was standing firm because I was like, I'm not paying these. I don't owe them. This is some racky fracking bull mess. And I wasn't doing it. And I was okay with actually pushing my bar admission date back because I wasn't going to compromise. And I can get like that. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And that's that. But I think if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that was my hard stop. I was like, no.
Yeah, that's. I mean, thank you for sharing that too, because that's very transparent. Because people need to understand that your credit sometimes is not just about not being able to buy the car you want. I have a question for you though about something you said, right? So, we talk about how in our community we don't have these kind of conversations, and the question I have, and I'm thinking this through, is because I wonder if it's just my circle. Do you think that's changing at all, or because I know sometimes we can like live in boxes, so I see the conversation more, but maybe it's the people that I surround myself with. What do you think? Like both of you guys, I wonder what both of you guys think about that. You think the conversation is changing a little bit, or
No.
Really? I think
No.
it is. No?
Listen, no, man. I'm still in the hood, man. Ain't nobody talking about their credit in the hood, man. Only time they talk about their credit is when they.
Like,
Listen,
go
man. Only time people talk about their credit in the hood is when they running it up at some kind of store. Like they still in consumer mode in the hood because they still lack resources. So
I think I agree with that to a certain extent. I think that they are still in consumer mode, but I think social media has kind of changed where the information, there's so many people with the information who are trying to share it that the conversations are happening. But I also recognize it could just be my circle. And you know what I mean? Like I try to think about that. Like am I caught in the echo chamber where I see the conversations happening? So it seems to be different, but maybe it's not. I don't know. What's your perspective, Courtney?
I definitely think it's definitely changing. I think, especially since COVID, I think COVID has really changed a lot of people. Also, on top of that, like you can look at Tiffany, the Budgetista's group. Her group, I got in her group when there was like a couple of thousand people. That thing has grown to almost 500,000 people in a Facebook group. So I think there's definitely a need. And I think people are starting to see like, okay, there's something I'm not doing right, or there's something I'm not getting. Now, a lot of times, a lot of financial things are focused on what somebody's trying to get or do. So somebody's like, I'm trying to get a house. And now they're like, oh, I'm looking at my credit. Like this ain't going to work. Like, what do I need to do? So I think it's usually focused on something, but a lot of people just don't get right just to get right. And that includes myself. Like my investments have always been fine, but my other stuff has been like, what are we doing here? Yeah. So, yeah. But I think, again, once people kind of get into the idea of wellness, whole wellness, then they're like, you know what? I'm raggedy in this space. I need to fix this. I'm raggedy over here. I probably need to fix this too. And one of the things that I've seen is that as people in my space get older, they're starting to, some of them are still going to be raggedy no matter what. They're going to be raggedy at 30. They're going to be raggedy at 50. They're going to be raggedy at 60. That's just some people.
You just say, you said that's telling talking about you. You said,
yeah, man.
At you next time.
Yeah. Put the at symbol in front of me when you say stuff like that.
Okay. I know.
No, but to your point, you're right though. Some people like will never get it. I get it. I get what you're saying.
So I'm sorry, Corey Captain. Corey. Okay. All right. That's fine. And I honestly just had that conversation with somebody else over a family member. One of my family members got me so upset. And I was like, I don't understand why they're acting like this at 60 plus. And then my friend was like, well, they're raggedy. And they've been raggedy.
Listen,
and they won't continue.
What did Maya Angelou tell you? Maya Angelou said, look, people show you who they are every day. It's up to you to believe them.
Facts.
You know what I mean?
So I was like, all right. But I think to a certain extent, I think it is an echo chamber on some sides. Because I do just kind of put myself around people who like, who are talking about the same stuff. Like, I don't really care what the Kardashians are doing. I don't care. I did get involved with the entanglement stuff, but I got involved with it to kind of educate because I thought that it was like something trendy that people were talking about and said, okay, well, this is a good time to educate. But I normally don't get involved with pop culture. I'm usually trying to, find a plumber or find a solution to some kind of issue. Like I'm really trying to do something. So to me, like all that other stuff is too much. I'll just unfriend or unfollow if it's like a family. Unfollow if
Yeah.
it's family
I mean,
member, anybody else. I'm like, whatever.
I like a little bit of ratchetness, but what I will say is this though: the thing about pop culture, what you just said is true. You can use it as a way to educate, right? So one of the reasons I put up the crazy memes pretty much on a daily basis because that I get an inbox every day, and it allows us to open up and start that dialogue. And it started from
Yep.
just a joke. It starts as a joke, and then you actually get to have a dialogue with someone. Um, but let me ask you this question because you shared something interesting about the whole thing of not being admitted to the bar. What has been your biggest hurdle that you've had to overcome? Is it that or is it something else? To get to where you are now from where you started, what has been your biggest hurdle?
Myself.
Okay, explain what you mean by that.
Myself in terms of my limiting beliefs, myself in terms of doing things that were not necessarily in alignment with what I thought my life should look like. Partially because I didn't believe that I could have the life that I wanted or all those other things. So really just myself, like that's my biggest thing. Cause once I get my mindset on something, y'all, it's curtains. But it's also appreciating that about myself. Because again, you can do a lot of things, but you're not going to do all things well. So understanding that every shiny object that is out there or thing that's interesting is not necessarily for you. Like a lot of people, like I don't really talk about credit that much at all, but I know a lot about credit because I've been through the ringer with credit, but that's not something that I think I need to do in my business, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things that like sticks out to me throughout this entire conversation is the whole idea of self-awareness. Like you're real big on understanding what you're strong at and where your shortcomings are, and you know just being very self-aware. So I think that's like ringing through with everything that you're saying. Is that like a conscious thing where you like I'm going to be honest with myself and be self-aware?
Kind of. I mean, so what happened is when I lived in West Virginia, I was by myself a lot. I didn't really I had friends, but I didn't have any family there. My closest family was in Pittsburgh, which is an hour and 10 minutes away. My good friends from college that I had were in Pittsburgh, which were an hour and 10 minutes away. And so I spent a lot of time with myself. And there were certain aspects of myself that I was like, I don't really like that aspect of your personality. When you're kind of like with yourself, by yourself, you kind of go, I don't really like that, and it was took some time of, really saying, what do I love about myself and what do I not love about myself? And what are the things that even if I don't love about myself, am I willing to change it? Some stuff I was just like, that's just me. Oops, I ain't doing it. That's not what I'm going to do. And there's other stuff that was like, you know what? If I change this, I can improve something else. So it just really depends. But being by yourself and trying to get to know yourself and just growing up, and I knew I didn't go to law school in Philadelphia because I knew I needed to grow up. I was doing a lot of partying before I went to law school because I was making a lot of money at Merrill. I don't ask me where that money went because I don't know. But again, that's being, that was like, you're looking at your bank account. Like you had a lot of money last year and you were doing nothing. You even spent a whole month in the Philippines. Where is your money? So those are the conversations that I was having with myself. And then, and the answers always kind of came back to, because initially I wasn't like, oh, Courtney, why don't you have any money? It was just like, life is hard or whatever the case may be. And it's like, no, all the answers actually come back to you and what you're doing. The reason why you're in whatever situation you're in, good, bad, or indifferent, is because of the decision that you made or did not make.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because one thing to say, these are the things I don't like or have that, but to also take action is one on the things you think you should take action. But you're very open and honest about it. You're transparent about it. Like, so I think that's rather impressive. And maybe that's because you're a teacher. So you like to use even yourself as a way to educate other people.
Yeah.
Man. So now next question. What book would you say is your favorite book or that has inspired you along your journey?
Ooh, so
You can give more than one. If you have more than one, you can give a couple, but I just like to see what kind of reading material we want to add to it. We have a comprehensive list that we keep with guests that we add books to kind of like build up a little library. So what would be your book?
Okay, so volume 1 and volume 2 of the tax code.
Oh,
Interesting. Yeah, interesting.
You're like, why?
You're trying to put people to sleep. But I know why you say that though. I think I know why.
the tax code. No, she just said it. The tax code is the cheat code.
That's it.
Okay. Explain that for the people watching. Why is the tax code the cheat code in your opinion?
So the tax code tells you, first of all, the tax code incentivizes certain types of income or certain types of work and disincentivizes other certain types of income and other types of work. So if I earn money, like if I exchange dollars for hours, I'm going to pay more money in taxes on that income as opposed to me having a buy and hold investment that I decide to cash out on. So I can either, like, I think my marginal tax rate, I think it's like 34%, somewhere around there. But my capital gains tax, if I hold an investment, either it's a capital asset, so real estate or stock, if I hold that longer than a year and I sell at a gain, I'm going to pay 15% on my profit. Huh? So if I do less work, I get to keep more? Wait a second. So I think that kind of stuff, I think that's part of a really good example. Also, stepped up basis. If I buy Google in 2003 at $100 a share, and I die in 2010, whenever, like, we'll say whenever 2010 is, and it's like maybe $700 share. It wasn't, but we'll go with it. So I have a $600 gain per share. Cool. But the thing is, if I die with that, my whoever receives that stock as a beneficiary of my stock, that whole gain, that $600 a gain per share goes away, and it's called stepped up basis. So basically, the government doesn't get to touch that $600 in gain, and that's because of the tax code. It's actually, they call it, like, everybody's looking for a loophole. It's the biggest loophole in the tax code. It's right there in plain sight. I think it's like 1231, maybe. I may be making that up. Don't quote me on that, but that it's in the tax code. So my point is that there's a lot of jewels in the tax code that a lot of people miss because they don't read it. If anybody tells you something like, yeah, you can do this and it's tax, this is the tax consequences, go to the tax code, or even go to the IRS website. Like, you can search their stuff and you can usually find an answer. It may not be a complete answer because they can't address everything, but at least put you in the ballpark. But so many people lose out on really great opportunities to make more money and keep more money because they don't understand it. So that's why I say the tax code is cheat code. So I can sit at home and on my computer and buy some stock today, sell it, a year plus a day from now, and I have, I can make we'll say I make $100,000. None of, it's only taxable as such a small fraction. But if I make that same $100,000, the government gonna take all my money and then some, and I'm gonna be mad.
Yeah. So that's bars right there. So the tax code is the cheat code. It sounds like a show title.
Volume 1 and 2.
Volume 1 and 2.
Not just volume. He sound like Jigga. Talking about some volume 1 and 2.
Listen, so the tax code is too big. So for classes, we would have a condensed version, but actually the full code is 2 books. So I mean, I don't know. That's it.
You know what I mean? She out there sounding like she ready to drop, a bar every summer. You know what I mean? Like,
volume 1 and 2. No, but that's very powerful because and we've talked about this in the past, how folks only worry about tax time when it comes around to April, right? But taxes are something that you should worry about all year long, because I mean, it's one thing to make more money, but to keep more of what you make is even, that's even more powerful. And those incentives, that's amazing. So what is the future for the Ivy Investor? Where do you see yourself going in the future with your business?
But I have more books.
Oh, you got more books? Okay, give us more books though. Listen, more books. Let's go.
Okay. Let's go. So, One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch. He was the manager of the Magellan Fund for years. I think it is still the best performing mutual fund ever. So that's my favorite book because he kind of breaks down stock market investing kind of just in everyday terms, just like, hey.
It's very simplified. He simplifies it. He definitely does.
It. My favorite book about investing. What else do I have? I'm just trying to think of what else I have in my pocket. The Richest Man in Babylon.
George
The
Clason.
Alchemist. The Alchemist. What else? The 10X Rule.
Oh yeah.
10X by Grant Cardone.
Yeah. That's a really good one because that's one of the mentality shifts, kind of changing my mindset about things, because I think one of the things that I noticed that we kind of limit ourselves off the bat is that we limit ourselves by salary or hourly wage. So they're like, yeah, I can make $100,000 a year. Okay. But if you're in sales, you can make $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right. So you limit yourself by kind of having this salary. So understanding, okay, one, I need to set some, I always always set goals. I've always been a goal setter, but like setting like big, bold, like hairy, audacious, like them big old goals. And when you hit them, you're like, I see you, Court. But
Yeah.
really kind of getting yourself, and then also the compound effect. So there's two things, and the compound effect is basically like the whole process is that everything that you do builds up to something.
Yep.
And I think that's really important is that, I think we get ourselves into a microwave society that we expect everything to be done in 30 seconds or less. And sometimes that's just not the case. But we kind of get excited when we see overnight successes. And it's like, no, this person's overnight success, but they've been working for 10 years. Like, come on. Like, people look at my Instagram and they're like, yo, your Instagram, you got a blue check, you got XYZ followers, da 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 da. And it's like, oh, they feel like you're like, I just popped up overnight. And I was like, I've been doing this. Look at my feed. Like, I've been doing this for a while. And so again, now people are starting to see, but I've been laying the foundation, and it's really all about that foundation. Your foundation has to be strong. And I just feel like so many people don't put in the work, but they want they really want the other side of it. Like when I was talking to people in college, and I'll just tell you, I was talking to them. I wasn't doing anything else. I was talking to people in the college. So when I was having the conversations with the people in college, and I will just leave it at that, what I would always share is the story of Hecate Penn. And Hecate Penn, I don't know how I found it. My parents told me about it when I was a baby or something, like, nursery rhymes. But I thought it was such a really powerful story. You had this like hen that was making bread. So she's like, hey, who wants to help me get the wheat? And then, the squirrel was like, no. The duck was like, no. Everybody was like, no, basically, I'm busy. Cool. She was like, all right, cool. So she got her wheat. Then she's like, all right, I got the wheat. Who wants to help me, grind the wheat? Everybody's like, oh, I'm busy. The owl was like, no, I'm good. Da-da-da-da. So same thing. So every single process, she's like, every single step of this bread making process, she was asking for help, and everybody was like, I'm busy. So when she finally gets done with the bread and it's now sitting hot on the windowsill to cool off, now everybody wants a piece of bread. Wait a second. What work did you do to get this bread? Literally and figuratively. None.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's the compound effect again. It's like, hey, there was something that went into this each step. You see the final product of the bread, but there was more there to it. There was more of a process there that you weren't too tuned in to actually appreciate, nor did you even want to engage yourself in. So that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, they weren't with her shooting in the gym. That's what that's another way to say it. But that's true though. You got to put the work in, and people don't see that. Especially as you're building a business up, as you build it, you have customers, or if you're online, you have followers, whatever it may be. You need to serve. I don't care whether you have 15 people watching you. You need to serve those 15 people. You know what I mean? Because you can go back in your feed and just like go back and see like the growth from time, but you've been putting the work in for a long time. Yeah. So this is awesome. But let's talk about the future of the Ivy Investor. What is the future of the Ivy Investor?
I don't know. I really don't know. And the reason
I know you got a big audacious goal. Share your big audacious goal with
us. So I hit some of my big, bold, audacious goals. Like I really did. Like I was trying to figure out before we got on, like where I stuck my list. So I actually had a list that I was working on. So I was crossing stuff off. I was putting the date by the side. I was doing all this other stuff. And now I can't find a list. It's around though. Definitely around. But I kind of was thinking to myself I've been feeling very uneasy, like not uneasy in a bad way, but just restless. I'm like, all right, Court, like, what are we doing next? Like, what are we doing? And my answer to myself is like, I don't know. So I'm kind of still here. Like, I don't know. Like what I had right in front of me is I'm doing a Mastering of 7 Streams of Income Summit. A lot of people talk about, the average millionaire needs to have 7 streams of income, or they have 7 streams of income, or however they want to make that statement. But the thing is that, there's no such thing as an average millionaire. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is that I think it's really important that people know that 7 streams of income doesn't mean 7 different jobs where you're exchanging dollars for hours, or 7 different businesses, because you're, master, you're a jack of all trades, master. Yeah, jack of all trades, master of none. So again, it's actually using what you have, which is usually your earned income, and putting it into other streams. Like, you have dividend income, which is income that you dividend money that you're getting profits and earnings from stock. Okay, cool. So you have that coming in. You have capital gains when you buy or sell. Excuse me, when you sell a capital asset as a profit, you have business income. If you have a business and you have profit coming in, a profit income, that's another stream. You have interest income. I have a bank account, so look, I have an interest income. So again, it's not about making everything about what I can do or what I can physically be in the marketplace to do, because at the end of the day, you're going to get old. You're going to get tired. You could get sick. So you can't show up every day in the marketplace to actually make money. So how do you allow yourself to make money without you being there, without you physically needing to show up? And that's what the 7 streams of income is about. So that's what I'm doing a summit about. So it's basically 3 nights, 6 experts, and we're all kind of talking about the best ways to master that stream of income. So I have Terry Igioma, who is a master trader. She's just killing the game. She's awesome. I have Letitia Stiles. She's teaching about how to profit with your business income. I'm teaching dividends. Kendra Barnes is teaching real estate. I have another young lady. She's talking about how to increase your earned income. And then I have an attorney, a trademark attorney, talking about how to monetize your trademarks and basically how to deal with royalty income. So we're just covering all of that. And it's just about having these conversations on a regular basis so people know that I just don't have to go to work every single day. I'm not telling you not to go to work. Courtney said for me not to. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I didn't tell you that. But, it's other ways for you to make money as opposed to just sitting at the desk. I remember I was sitting when I was working for the city, I was looking at my phone and I was like, did I make more money in my investments that I did this week at my job? Something wrong. It's like something's wrong. So again, I still had the good city benefits, right? Good city retirement. So I was like, okay, we'll just calm down. But again, once I realized I realized in my head that it was possible that anything could happen. Then I started seeing little glimmers of anything happening. And I took the lid off my top. I took the lid off. So that's kind of like what I have going on. So the summit is Monday, August 17th through Wednesday, August 19th. It's available. It's going to be taught live, but the replay is also available if you miss it. And it'll also be hosted on Teachable after the summit's over, because I was telling people you're not going to catch all the jewels live. So you're probably going to have to rewatch it anyway. So I'm excited to have everybody. So.
Oh. Yeah, absolutely. And we will put the link to the summit right in the description. We're also going to put it in our bio and all of our social media accounts. We'll put the link to make sure you can attend that summit, because that's very powerful. Because what we're talking about is putting your best employees to work. Because people say, how many employees you got? I say, I got a bunch of old white men that work for me. Former presidents actually work in my company. you got to put them all white men to work.
My official job title is money pimp. I send them out on the stroll to send them back out. I send them out to bring more back in. I said, go ahead.
Because that is powerful.
Get out there.
I will never forget. Like the first dividend check I got, and it was like a small one. It wasn't even that much money. It was like 34 cents. But I remember the first time I was like, hold on, I didn't do anything. Like it blew my mind that you can like put money out and then you get money back, and it's a whole paradigm shift once you realize that. So that should be a powerful event. You have some amazing speakers. Kudos to you for putting that together, because you got some heavy hitters on that doctor.
Yeah,
so make sure you take a look at that. And like I said, we'll put a link to that in the description, as well as our bio, and also you'll be able to see it on the Ivy Investor page. So, man, that's amazing that you have that coming up. And Courtney, I want to say thank you first off for your time, because your time is valuable. You attorneys like to charge per hour. So,
I have a little bit of experience with that too.
Yeah, so your time is literally valuable. So you want to say thank you for that. Also, for those watching, make sure you check all of us out, because we all do a show together every Sunday live. On Facebook as well as YouTube, the Black Wealth Project, where it's us three, as well as we have 3 other partners that come on, and we have fun and talk about issues within the Black community as it pertains to wealth, not just finances but overall wealth. And you mentioned that too. You mentioned that when you start looking at the overall picture, it kind of changes you as well. So it's not just about money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Courtney, just want to say thank you for your time.
you.
We'll make sure that we get the information out about what you have going on with the summit, and make sure we see if we can get some folks to attend there. I know my wife said she wants to attend. Once she saw all the girl power you had on the lineup, she said she's going. So.
Yeah, I think my wife is going to have to get a sit down course also. Like she's going to be sitting front and center also.
Yeah, no doubt. So,
I'm so excited. I actually have my assistant working one of the nights because I have another engagement. So my little assistant who gets paid, he gets paid at the end of the summer. I'm super excited about this. And half of his pay is going to what? A Roth IRA. So I had to get that out there.
yeah, that's fire too, because setting up a youngster with a Roth IRA, that has a lot of time to cook, and and what that does for your taxes too, man. How old is your sister?
Yeah.
14.
How old is your sister? Wow. So you're getting him started at 14. So imagine when he turns 40, man. Anyway, to the folks out there listening, make sure you share this episode. Make sure you check out everything Courtney has going on. Make sure you get a ticket to her summit, because that should be powerful. Give us some feedback on this episode. Let us know what you think. Share it with your family and friends so we can get this information in front of them. And again, Courtney, thank you. We love you and appreciate you. And thanks for your time. And we're going to wish you nothing but continued success moving forward. And to our audience out there, as we always say, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you keep. Game elevates, and we shall see you on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.